I think we need to remember there's always two sides to a story.
I'm hoping that people, listening to this will be able to take something.
There's all sorts of pressures that are going on. What is the point of working if you can't enjoy your time, your life outside of work? You kind of work to live, not live to work. Take it head on. Speak to Dan, the manager, and say to him, look, is this normal here? Is that expected?
It's okay to say no.
Something a bit more practical, and then I came across an apprenticeship off my own kind of research and findings. Unfortunately, there wasn't that much support for it in sixth form, so
Hello guys, welcome back to Being B. And we are back again with another episode. So this week, we actually have a guest in the house. I can't wait to get into this conversation because the way that I have been planning for this, I've been nervous, but we're going to get into it. There's a lot to unpack. I want to welcome a good friend of mine, someone who I've grown up with, and I just can't wait for you to hear a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about, especially his journey, his experience. And he's someone who has a lot of knowledge, a lot of knowledge, I tell you. And I just can't wait to get into it. So I've got in the house a marketing manager, an apprenticeship ambassador. The list can go on. He is someone who is a father as well. He's a husband. He is somebody who is an advocate for apprenticeships. And he's going to share with us today, his experiences. I've already mentioned his experience going through being an apprentice, shall I say. And he's somebody who uses his voice, especially to inspire others, to, I guess, just help. And welcome to Being B, Kasim Osman.
Thank you, nice to be here.
You're here, Kasim. You're here.
We made it.
Wow. Thank you, first of all, for agreeing to be here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I remember when I was thinking about the guests that I was going to have on here, I kind of went into into just my own world. I was like, who do I want to have here? What sort of guests do I want my audience to kind of learn from? And you was on the list. But at first I was kind of scared to message you at first. And I was like, is he going to say yes? Is he going to say no? But then I thought, you know what, B, just do it. The worst that can happen is he says no.
Exactly.
But thankfully that wasn't the case. And that's why you're here today. So I guess just before we get into it, we'll of course chat a little bit more about what you do. People can get to learn a little bit more about who you are. I really want to also take people through a bit of a journey. So we're going to be going through the genesis of Kasim, who is he? Where did you start? Perhaps starting from childhood up until now, and just unpack a few things. And I'm hoping that people, listening to this will be able to take something, even if that's one person. I remember when I started this podcast, I was saying that whatever I talk about here, anything that I talk about here, if at least one person can take something from here, that is enough for me. That is enough for me. So I'm hoping that that's what's going to happen today. Just to break the ice a little, I've got a little game of this and that. Very much just a quick fire sort of round. Just ask you a few things. I'll say, yeah, basically, as it says on the tin, this or that. And then you just tell me whether it's this or that.
Sounds fun. Let's get into it.
Perfect. So starting with, I've got here a high salary or flexible hours at work.
Flexible hours.
Okay, nice and easy. How about unlimited holidays or a 4-day work week?
Probably say a 4-day work week.
Okay, cool. iPhone or Samsung?
Oh, Samsung. Easy.
Oh, easy. Interesting. Well, I'm not going to give my opinion on that one, actually. Okay, well, we'll get to the next. This one's an interesting one. Scone or scone?
It's gone. It's the right way.
TikTok or Instagram?
Instagram.
Okay. Why'd you say that?
I guess it's maybe I'm gonna make myself sound really old now. I guess maybe age. I don't know. Facebook seems a bit too old for me. TikTok, I do love TikTok, but I kind of think Instagram has like static and it has video,
Yeah.
whereas TikTok don't really do static. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have your carousels and your single images, but
Yeah.
I think Instagram's like a more kind of bigger platform.
Do you feel like, because what I find is like with Instagram seems to be a little bit more, I don't want to say formal, everything seems quite polished.
Yeah.
Whereas with like TikTok, you can very much just put your camera up, start recording.
Yeah.
Like so much that
I mean,
that goes
from
on.
a like a marketing manager perspective, I guess I would say Instagram, but like as a personal TikTok, because it's like you said, it's not as polished, it's authentic. You kind of get, but like from a marketing manager perspective, I don't just have to record a video take time, right? So I can get away with doing like static images or carousels.
Yeah.
So yeah, personally, you're right. I think TikTok is more authentic, but and Instagram kind of like is a bit polished, a bit more not fake, but you know, less genuine, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we've got here morning flights or night flights.
Morning flights, as in like
If you're traveling to a destination,
yeah.
would you prefer to take the morning flight or maybe the later flights?
I'm a morning person, so I'd say morning flight. Yeah.
Okay. I agree with that one, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same. And I think as well with like a lot of morning flights, you'd rather get there earlier, have at least some of the day there. Because there's a few times when I've been on holidays, you've gone and you've taken like the later flights, you get there and the day's pretty much gone and it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
You get a nice little tour of the place as well. You can't really see it in dark.
absolutely.
You know, they're not going to wait till the next day to give you a tour. So, you know, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just a few more. So we've got here Friday. So just like a working week. Do you prefer the Fridays or do you prefer the Mondays?
Oh, definitely Fridays. Yeah, definitely Fridays.
Get the Friday feeling and just go home and clock off for the weekend.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. How about chicken or beef?
So chicken's more versatile. I do like beef. I really like beef, but chicken's more versatile. If I had to pick one, I'd say chicken.
Agreed. Dinner date or cinema date?
I love movies. I love food. You know, this is very difficult. And probably the most difficult one you've asked me. Let's say dinner dates. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I also agree with that one actually. I think a lot of these we seem to be like pretty much on the same side.
We can discuss the Samsung and iPhone one after.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's go into that. I'll do then one more. So the last one is sweet or savory.
Savory.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Any particular reason?
I do like sweets, desserts and stuff, but I mean, I'm more of a savory kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just prefer. I eat a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not caught up with me just yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know. But
Nah, you're looking well.
Thank you.
Definitely.
How about yourself?
I would say sweet.
Yeah.
I've got such a sweet tooth.
It's growing, but like, yeah, I'm kind of more towards the savory side, but it's growing. I never used to have desserts, but I'm starting to like fancy a dessert after my main meals.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, that's it. I think let's go back then to the iPhone and Samsung conversation, I guess.
Yep.
Why Samsung over iPhone?
So I don't know if I'm a bit biased. In fact, unlike most people who started off on like some form of an Android phone, I started off on an iPhone. My first iPhone was an iPhone 4, and I was like in year 7, year 8 at the time. It was a big deal. Like I was like over the moon, really good behavior. And then, you know, my parents kind of like said, okay, yeah, we'll spoil you and treat you with this. So yeah, I got an iPhone 4. I started off on an iPhone, and then I don't know. I think when I bought my first Samsung, I think it was like an S6 or 7 or something. It just allowed for more like customization, and I really liked that. And then over time, I mean, now if you ask me, they're pretty much the same. It just depends on the ecosystem. So if you've got, you know, AirPods, Apple Watch, things like a MacBook Pro or whatever, then I'd probably say stick to iPhone. I don't think it's like one versus the other. They are both like very good flagship phones, probably the best phones out there, but it's just preference. I think one good thing about iPhone is that everything's already done for you.
Yeah.
Whereas with Samsung, there is a little bit more prep, but you can there's more customization as well. So like camera, if you're talking, you like can get into editing and a lot better. Whereas with iPhones, I think you have to like download a third-party application or
Yeah,
something.
that's true.
So
That's very true.
there's not, I wouldn't say one's better than the other, it's just preference. But my
Yeah.
preference is Samsung,
Samsung.
even though I started off on an iPhone.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What about yourself?
My answer's not as deep as that. I think quite simply, like actually, I do agree with the point you made about it just being a preference. It has just always been iPhone. I remember me and my cousins when we were a lot younger. I was always like on the iPhone side. Because like yourself, I think my first iPhone was, I think it was the 5C, the ones with like the different colors. I remember that so clearly. It was just the yellow iPhone 5C because that's my favorite color.
Yeah.
And since then, it was very much just iPhones. And my cousins were more on the Samsung side. So we'd always have like these arguments about, oh, iPhone's better. No, Samsung's better.
Yeah.
This is that. But now they do not use Samsung at all. And now they use like iPhone. I'm just like, well, if you listen to me back then, like we would, like they hated iPhones with a passion. And also I think it's the camera of the iPhone that I prefer a lot more, in a sense that because I enjoy like taking pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, the camera is really important. And I find that with Samsung, the newer ones are definitely a lot better. But back then you'd get an iPhone, you look at the camera and then you look at the Samsung. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
it's a
oh,
mess.
my word.
I think the advantage, I mean, if you ask me about laptops, I'd actually say MacBook over Windows, like Macintosh, Apple over Windows. And I say that because I think generally this probably applies to iPhones as well, longevity.
Yeah.
Apple is just solid when it comes to the 3, 4. I mean, I've given my daughter, I mean, she kind of uses like, we have like this white noise in the night, right? So I put that on, but that's on my like old iPhone 10 or something like that,
Yeah.
which I kind of used as a second phone at the time for like, well, for what you said, content and pictures and stuff,
Yeah.
because it was easier, but then it was out of the box. The camera was already ready and I didn't have to tweak around with the settings. So yeah, I can't say I'm like on one side or the other. But like my preference at the moment is Samsung, but my wife has an iPhone. I'm still having those battles with her till this day, iPhone v Samsung. But yeah, definitely like when it comes to laptops, I'd say a MacBook Pro when I can manage to save up for one.
Yeah, but I think recently Apple have actually just released a new MacBook, which I was actually thinking of this as well, because for me the price of a MacBook just was not justifiable for me, because I don't really do a lot of like high-end editing that requires a MacBook, so I don't think I can spend that much money for a MacBook if it's not really a necessity. And for me, it was just I just need something that I can use Word, especially like at university. It was very much just Microsoft Word, do my assignments, and that's all I needed.
MacBook Air might be okay. You should maybe consider one. They're a bit cheaper, I think, or even if you got like refurbished or something.
They're still quite expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, if you literally just need it for like uni, like Google Docs or whatever, then you could get away with any laptop really. But yeah.
Because I don't know if you've seen, I'm sure it's the MacBook Neo.
Right,
They've just bought out. And it's a lot more affordable. If I guess for someone like myself who doesn't want to spend too much and wants to kind of still have the luxury of having like a MacBook, that would be like a good starting point. I don't know if there's anyone who, even listening that probably is thinking of that. When they introduced that, I was like, okay, that's great, because Apple are quite good at they'll bring out a product that is very expensive, but then they'll bring like an alternative that is a more affordable as well.
See, I don't know if I agree with this statement, although part of me probably does. I've always like Samsung create it, they're the innovators. Apple are the perfecters, like they perfect it. So a lot of the features Apple has today, they'll go on and on about it, but actually it's been introduced in Samsung. But I guess playing devil's advocate, the difference is Apple perfect it. I think they wait for others to mess up and get it wrong. But by the time they've released it, they're like a lot more, perfected and polished and everything else like
Yeah.
that, and then they just charge you a premium for the same thing.
Yeah,
But you know, is what it is. I without getting too techie and geeky, but I think the difference, as the advantage Apple have over like Samsung, and I had this issue with like Snapchat back in the days. It was so annoying. My Samsung camera was amazing. As soon as you open Snapchat and you take a picture on Snapchat, it's awful. And the benefit Apple have is that there's so many different versions of Android. Samsung runs on Android, and Android isn't only used by Samsung; it's used by all like HTCs and all the like other Android phones. Whereas with Apple, it runs on like what is it? The operating system for Apple. I forgot the name, but iOS. Sorry, yeah, iOS.
Okay.
And so a lot of the app developers, they optimize it. Tell me if I'm getting too nerdy or too geeky.
No, that's fine. That's actually interesting.
Yeah,
because,
they optimize it specifically for.
Yeah.
They only have, and like you said, like they only release a few, like in a year, what, two, three phones. Like they have the budget, the premium, the flagship, and so these developers optimize it for those kind of phones. Whereas on the Android, on the Samsung side, they've got to optimize it for absolutely every phone that uses Android. So even though your Samsung might be a beast in terms of specs, you're actually being like nerfed almost in terms of your specs, because the app developers have so many different phones to optimize it for. So yeah, Apple make everything.
Yeah.
So
Okay. What about like, I think we've spent so much time on this, but it's quite interesting. So you know, with like the design of an iPhone, the not really like into this, or I don't know much, but maybe you can educate me on this. You know, like for instance, the I don't know what you call it, like the design of the phone in itself,
the
material,
yeah,
and the material used. Because I've noticed with more of the new Samsung, because I'm sure since S26 or S7 a few years back, I kind of just stopped keeping up with the different versions of Samsung that would come out. You know, with like iPhones, it's like 16, 17, etc. I've noticed with the newer phones, they tend to have like a similar design with like iPhones, like the metallic kind of.
Yeah, it's getting a lot better in terms of build. I mean, it has been really good. A lot of people don't know, but Apple actually needs Samsung, and Samsung actually need Apple. So a lot of people don't know, but Samsung provide the screens for Apple. They're the like biggest producers of these screens that Apple use. And no one buys in bulk the way Apple does from Samsung, because Samsung's a lot like bigger than Apple in terms of Apple create like tech and all these. But Samsung as a company, I think they produce like vehicles, they produce military grade equipment and all that sort of stuff. So they're a lot bigger in that sense. But yeah, they kind of need each other to survive as well. A lot of people don't know.
Very true. Interesting stuff. Okay, so that's the end of that segment. That was just meant to be actually a quick fire round, but we just went on a tangent there.
Yeah.
But we'll continue.
Learn something new, right?
Every day, absolutely. So now down to my favorite segment of the podcast. A little bit different this week because it's not going to be me you'll be hearing about. You're going to be getting some home truths from somebody else. So Kasim's going to give us his opinion on this story, and we'll get into it. We'll dissect things a little bit. Yeah. Be ready? Let's go. Here it goes. Am I the problem for refusing to answer my manager after work hours, even though it looks bad? So this is a 25-year-old male. I recently started my full-time job after months of struggling to find work. The job market where I live is brutal, so when I finally got this role, I felt like I couldn't say no, even though some of the early signs weren't great. My manager, let's call him Dan, okay, made it clear from day one that he expects commitment. At first, I thought he just meant working hard during office hours. I was wrong. Within the first week, he started messaging me on Teams after hours. At first, it was small things like, hey, quick message, or quick question. Can you check something for me real quick? So just little things. I'd respond because I didn't want to seem lazy, especially as a new hire in the job. But then it escalated. He started messaging me So at 8 p.m., 10 p.m., even once at 11:30 p.m. Well, I've already got my opinion here, Kasim, so I can't wait to hear what you say. And if I didn't reply within like 10 to 15 minutes, he would follow up with, like question mark, are you there? I need this ASAP. One night I was out having dinner with my family, which I hadn't done in ages because of job hunting stress. And he messaged me asking for a report update. So I'm assuming there was some sort of work that needed to be done and they just needed an urgent response. Just bear that in mind. I didn't reply until the next morning. I mean, sorry, I'm getting too carried away. My brain's it's already ticking. Let me just finish this. So when I got in, he pulled me aside and said, you need to be more responsive. It doesn't look good when I can't reply, rely on you, sorry. That honestly annoyed me because one, it was outside working hours. I had already completed everything due that day, and he's not being paid, overtime for doing these extra hours. So there's three things there. So he then politely told him that I'll be happy to handle anything during working hours, but I wouldn't be available consistently in the evenings. It doesn't end there. He didn't take that too well. Since then, he's been colder with him. He started nitpicking some of like his work, and feels like he's been subtly punished about not doing what his manager like asked of him outside of office hours. Want to make that clear as well. So a co-worker even then warned him, so the guy in question warned him that people who don't go the extra mile don't last long at this workplace. So now the person with the issue says that he's stressed because he really needs this job, but he also feels like he's losing, his work-life balance because of this. So part of me wonders if I should suck it up or respond after hours like everyone else does. The other part of me feels like if I give in now, it'll only get worse. So am I the problem for setting that boundary? And that's the story. I guess we can take it from there. Maybe go from the beginning. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, quite a bit to unpack there. And I think before we assess anything, actually, something that's helped me in my life a lot as well. I think we need to remember there's always two sides to a story, and we need to make sure we're not leaning in too much to one way or too much to another way. We need to kind of establish the facts, but then equally, we need to make sure we're assessing everything impartially and without any bias. And I know that's
Yeah.
often a lot more difficult, like kind of said than done. Um, I'd say so far, I mean, he's kind of done the right steps. It's a new job, obviously coming from the stress of not being able to find a job, and after so long actually finding a job. And you said this person's 25.
Mm-hmm.
He might have additional responsibilities. He might have a family to look after, or even just kind of keeping a roof above his head. There's all sorts of pressures that are going on. But equally, work-life balance is really important. What is the point of working if you can't enjoy your time, your life outside of work, right?
Absolutely.
You kind of work to live, not
Yes.
live to work,
Yeah.
right? Like that's basically the point of life. And so I think he's done the right thing in terms of initially, especially in your probation. I mean, you shouldn't be expected to be consistently available. I mean, to be fair, in terms of contracts, right? Like outside of your working hours, unless you're in like a really senior role, but he didn't specify whether he was in like a really senior role or not. I think there shouldn't be any expectation. But playing devil's advocate, flipping it on the manager, Dan's side, right? We need to think, was this person, did he tell Dan, the manager, I will give you this report by the end of the day? Maybe Dan's waiting for this report to show his superiors that treat him the same way. It might be like a vicious cycle. Dan gets treated really bad, so then he passes that on to Dan.
Yeah.
So I think we need to look at it from that perspective, but equally also understand the Redditor guy's name. What was his name? Sorry,
He didn't mention.
Okay, we'll
No,
call him.
there's no name.
Should we call him a name? Should we give him a name?
Yeah.
What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, let's go with Bob.
Let's go with Bob.
Bob works.
Right, yeah. So Bob, you know, understandably he wants to make a good impression,
Yeah.
and I think replying here and there to quick questions is fine. If he just so happens to go on Teams on his phone, like you can have it connected to your phone, I have it connected to my phone. I think thinking about my own situation, my manager does sometimes like message me on Teams, and it can be out of hours. But there's no expectation for a response, you know, and I think that's the key thing. Like me as a manager myself, I might occasionally, not all the time, work out of hours and occasionally message my team members on Teams. But they know that it's more of a case that I'll forget to send them that message when I next log on during work hours. So they know to disregard it. If it's urgent, if it's important, I'll WhatsApp them. But even then, that'll be about something like really serious. And I don't even mean like deadlines or anything. I literally mean like, you know, I won't be able to come into work today. This has happened. Please report to XYZ or something like that, right? So I think he's doing the right thing of setting boundaries early on. And I think if he's heard from others and he's seen himself, I would maybe start looking for another role in the background if that's a possibility. But equally, take it head on. Speak to Dan, the manager, and say to him, look, you know, is this normal here? Is that expected? Is it, and get him to sort of say it to you. I mean, you know, there's an element of, if it is just a manager, if that's how the company works, fine, but we don't know that yet. If that's just this one manager, then maybe he can, you know, get the manager to say that, to admit that, yeah, no, look, it's normal. I'm going to expect this thing for you. And then he's got his answer. So he could try change the system and go higher, or he could just, which is probably easier, find another place and leave. Well, depending on how easy it is. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'd say. Like, establish the facts, get your manager to kind of say, talk head on to him first.
Yeah.
And if you see that, look, he's not giving you a straight answer, he's saying it's not an issue, but then his attitude is changing, like he said, and he feels like he's getting punished for it, then maybe look elsewhere. Work-life balance is super important. But yeah, equally, he might have a roof that he has to provide, that he has to put over his head.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think with that as well, probably Bob's probably thinking, I've just gone through this whole process of finding this job. I've got this job. I don't want to lose it. I still want to keep that here, but at the same time, I want to give a good impression and show what I'm capable of doing. So I guess it's battling with that as well.
Yeah.
Another thing that you mentioned, which I really liked, was in relation to this sort of, which I found I have friends who currently work like in the legal sector, which is where I want to go. So I know a little bit more about that. When you're, for instance, you're given as a trainee solicitor, for example, you're given something to do. There's like a deadline for you to do this. Your supervisor will say, okay, I need it done by this time. And a lot of trainees tend to think, because my manager said I have to do this, that I must do it. Sometimes if you explain, okay, you have to also be very realistic, because if you're given a task and you've got 10 other things that you need to do that day, you then need to think, okay, how can I prioritize this? What's more important for me to do? What isn't so important? You kind of have to think, well, it's okay to say no. And I don't know, I'd be interested to hear what you think of, let's say if one of your workers or your staff members had said, you gave them something to do, and it was like, I don't think I can genuinely do this, or I won't get it to you in time, or I don't feel like I can produce the best possible work because either not enough time, or there's a lot of other things that I'm doing right now that take priority over this thing that you're setting me with. How would you like take that? Because I don't know. I think it's okay to say no. I would not shy away from saying no if I feel like, yes, I can still do the work for you, but the deadline you've given me is perhaps not very realistic. I'm not going to be able to produce something that is at the standard or at the level that you expect it to be at. I don't know what, like.
So full disclaimer, the advice I'm about to give now is something that I obviously try. I'm not perfect, right? So I try implement this myself, and I think this is like the gold standard, so everyone should strive towards this. Now, if you was like my employee and I gave you a piece of work and you said to me, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this with everything else that I've got going on, and I don't think it's as important as XYZ. To me, that's like actually a positive, because you've not just blindly accepted and taken the work on, knowing full well you're not going to be able to do this. So that shows me that actually this guy's got a backbone, and he's like willing to actually, be confident and be understanding of his workload, right? An employee that understands his workload and forecasts his work properly, and that's a sign of organization. So it would show me that you've got good time management skills and good organization skills to know full well you're not going to deliver this to this deadline, or you're not going to deliver to the quality of work that you want to deliver it to, which means that you're passionate as well, actually. You have pride in what you do. So that's a positive for me. What I would say back to you then is, you think that you've come back with me. Another good thing you've done is actually you've already done that initial task of like business need, like what is the most important business need here? Is this the business need? And you've already done that little task for me. Now I can correct you and I can say, well, no, Bienvenu, like, this isn't the most important thing. This is, and you might be like, okay, I can reorganize it then, and I will be able to deliver this deadline. But the fact that you've already kind of done that little assessment is another positive to me as a manager, because it means like he's not waiting for me to prioritize his jobs for him. Like, he's already done that initial task. So yeah, it would be a plus to me. Like, there's only so many hours in the day, right? And absolutely. You can only get so much done. So I think it would be, unrealistic. And I think it would actually be bad and more harmful for you to say yes when you know full well you can't deliver.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's so interesting, so refreshing to hear as well, your perspective on that. Especially because, like I said, these are things that employees, even, I guess, in my case or my example, as trainee solicitors, you will encounter as you're working, especially if you're at the start of your career, trying to like work yourself up, because you're thinking, oh my word, I have to make a good impression. I have to, show that I'm capable of doing this. But that can just lead to burnout.
And do you know what I think? And I don't know if you can relate to this in some way, but I can definitely relate to this. We have the added pressure of being new into like a career, right? And you want to do a good job, and you're young, and you want to be, you want to show your employer that you can, that you're kind of dedicated, right? But I think we have an added kind of stress on top of our heads, is that, like me in particular, my dad had only come to this country like 20 odd years ago, right? So he was an immigrant in this country, and so he worked his arse off, and he couldn't, like, he was doing multiple jobs. I barely saw him as a kid, just because he was always working. And it was on top of, like, it was his sacrifice that gave me the opportunities that I have today. They essentially built the foundation for me, right? And so you have that added pressure of like, crap, I don't want to fail, because not only am I going to fail myself, I'm going to fail my parents. And coming from the background I come from, there's a lot of pressure, to make sure that you're doing the best you can, not only for yourself, but so that all his sacrifice doesn't go to waste, almost. So I think there's that as well. But like I said, like management is always, and it's never about like, bossing people around or, having some sort of power trip or whatever. Management is all about coaching and developing and leading. And, if you're not making your employees better professionals at the work, but also better people, then, you're not managing. Like, that's not what management is.
Amazing. Do you know what? I think that actually leads us perfectly well into the actual main part of this whole episode. But before we do, I just want to, I don't know if you've got your final answer. So ultimately, to round that up, is Bob the problem for setting that boundary?
No. So I would say Bob's not the problem. And I would say just Bob has to make sure, though, that he's not making any assumptions. Like, Bob needs to be clear with his manager and set those standards like he has, which is good. But yeah, if Bob's manager is still giving him a bit of a cold shoulder, then Bob needs to look elsewhere, because that's not going to disappear. And Bob can fight the system and try complain and report his manager to the next manager up, but that's going to be a long battle as well. And sometimes it's better to just walk away. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so slowly transitioning now into the main part of, today. I think this is where people, I think now is when you should really also lock in and take in a lot of the things that Kasim's going to say. We're going to like break down a few things, and you know, just as yourself, as you're listening, you're going to learn something. I know that I'm definitely going to be learning something today, and we're definitely going to get something out of you, most definitely today. So starting from, I guess, from the beginning, kind of maybe tell me childhood, what was like childhood like? I know you mentioned this very briefly as we were speaking here, you know, like family life, want to touch a little bit of that. What was it like? I guess let's go from, childhood up until, you know, school, secondary school, and then we'll go there step by step. I guess just talk me through.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to say, firstly, I'm like, regardless of everything that I've gone through, I'm grateful, because, you know, you have to remember that there's people in the world that have it a lot worse. And so I think it's important to kind of think, you know, you have blessings, so many blessings that you might not think about always. So I think it's always important to remember that regardless of every hardship that you might have gone through, there's people out there that are in a lot worse of a situation than you. So be grateful, firstly, right? So yeah, I've had some tough times, but you know, overall, thankfully, everything's worked out in the end. So starting from secondary school, I kind of was in the bottom sets for everything. And, you know, for one reason or another, I had to kind of work my way up, and I was just a lost kind of, teenager, I guess. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to find my identity like a lot of people, and just wanted to make sure that, you know, I did the best I could, and I ended up in a decent career. So yeah, I kind of worked my way up the sets. I had to work extra hard. Like I said, I was a bit of a nerd in school. But then I also got along really well with like all different types of people. I didn't really have one set, you know, of a friendship group. I kind of got along with everyone, which is probably what you remember from like me talking to everyone. And so that was kind of tough working my way up, because, you know, you can, in the lower sets, you can often be surrounded by people that don't really care or haven't realized the importance of education just yet. And that was tough working my way up, but I did it over the years, you know, year 9, 10, 11. And then I ended up in like top sets for some things, a set 2, and you know, that was great because it meant that I got better support from the teachers. There were less distractions in the class, and I did really well in my GCSEs, and then that kind of led me to sixth form, where I did my sixth form studies. Maybe got a little bit too big-headed, did like too many A levels probably. At the time.
How many did you do?
Yeah, so I actually did 3, so triple business, the BTEC triple business. Then I did A-level maths, A-level further maths, A-level economics. I didn't even think you were allowed to do that. I don't know why I was allowed to do that, but anyways, I was a bit big-headed at the time because I got decent GCSE grades, and you know, I was warned by my head teacher at the time, Mr. Dillon. I don't know if you remember. He was like, this is too much, but I did it anyway. I did crash and I did burn, and I think that's a really good, like, for me as a person, I often have a habit of like biting off more than I can chew. And so I think it was a good life lesson. If anything, you know, I got to learn a bit about maths, and then learned that I loved it at GCSE, but not so much at, you know, A level, even though I had an amazing teacher, Stankovic, shout out to you. Was Mr. Stankovic your teacher as well?
It was. Yeah. I guess maybe for the listeners as well, the way that me and Kasim actually know each other is from school. We went to the same secondary school, and all the way up to sixth form. You were in the year above me. Yeah. And that's how we know each other. I remember as well, I don't know if you recall this, but you were working on a project. Yeah. And you reached out to me at the time. You was like, I'm doing so and so. Like, would you be interested in doing this? I was like, yeah, more than happy. And I think at that point you had already left school, right? I'm sure you had already left. Yeah. I was still at school at the time. But yeah, for people listening, we met through school. And as you mentioned there, Stankovic, he's great.
You had a cousin, right? Was it Naomi?
Yes, the same year as you.
Yeah, so I think we got involved in some sort of project. This was before the project that you're talking about, but we got sort of involved in some sort of project. And I remember her mentioning you or something like that, and then we kind of got you involved a bit into that business project.
Yes.
But yeah, afterwards, what you're referring to when I reached out to you was I was working in my first apprenticeship at an agency, and they were we had a contract with Sheffield City Council to essentially kind of educate people about the effects of smoking, all types of smoking, smoking in pregnancy, shisha, all sorts. And so we were running focus groups, and that was actually one of the first times in my career, and I'll talk about a bit more with regards to my apprenticeship, but I was thrown in the deep end in terms of like having to organize a focus group, reach out to people, push it out, and you were one of the people that I reached out to. And then, I'll talk a bit more about that afterwards, but yeah, that was a really good kind of experience. I was really nervous about the whole thing as well. And like you said, reaching out to people that I knew, but again, like you said, if you don't ask, you'll never find out. Absolutely. And you don't want to kind of be 10, 20 years down the line and be like, oh, I should have asked, because you don't know the answer until you ask. So yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And with that as well, I'll go back to what you were saying. Yeah, and that was also why I ended up studying business at sixth form. Kind of similar to yourself, kind of bite more than what I can chew. I started as well with maths. That didn't go too well.
Yeah.
And I said, this is not for me.
Well, do you know what though? Like, I think part of life is kind of realizing when something is too much, letting it go, and also realizing and admitting to yourself when you've probably made the wrong decision. And so I think that's what I did when I started in sixth form. When I took my like 6 equivalent A levels, I realized my first year didn't go too well for one reason or another, and it didn't go too well. So I kind of had a bit of a reality check. And in the second year, it was just like triple business all the way, making sure I just lock in and do my triple business. And I learned so much about economics, about maths, about further maths. I learned that I didn't really probably like maths as much after GCSE level, like when you go into further maths and you do proof by induction and all these other things.
That all sounds like gibberish to me.
Yeah, like... it's like really complicated sort of maths theories and topics and all that sort of stuff, all that jazz basically. But yeah, I like maths, maybe not to that level. And then economics was super interesting, and I think that's what piqued my interest in like career, like financial education as well. And that kind of, even though I stopped for my second year and I didn't finish the A level, it kind of sparked an interest in me where I learned economics kind of outside of school. But yeah, my sixth form, so we've kind of spoken about my secondary school experience. Sixth form, reality check in the second year, dropping the other 2 or 3 A levels because it was just too much for me, and then just focusing on my triple business. And then I guess after that, to kind of speed things up, I was looking for, I didn't know at the time, but I was looking to do an apprenticeship, something a bit more practical. And then I came across an apprenticeship off my own kind of research and findings. Unfortunately, there wasn't that much support for it in sixth form. So, she was amazing. She gave so much career advice as well. She was our careers advisor, and they were amazing at the advice that they gave with regards to university, but there wasn't as much information. You were kind of left to your own tools if you wanted to go down the apprenticeship route, and you couldn't apply to an apprenticeship through UCAS. So I was left to do my own research, which I did. I sorted out, what kind of apprenticeships I wanted to apply for, went in, applied for a few, and then I finally got one at a marketing agency in Sheffield, which was called Diva Creative, and that was perfect because that meant that it was an amazing start to my career. I got into an agency where there was so many different specialisms within marketing and so many experts, and it was all in one big room at the Showroom Cinema in Sheffield, and I could learn so much by kind of sitting with professionals and asking them questions. And I was thrown in the deep end in the sense that I was working with real clients. I was working on real campaigns. We delivered real results. So it all felt like, I felt so out of depth, by the way. Like I was like, I felt like I didn't belong in that room because I was probably like younger than the rest of the people in the room by like 10, 15 years. Wow. But equally as well, I was like the only person of color there as well. And probably some of the campaigns they were actually delivering were from deprived areas, some of which was the area that I had come from as well. So it was interesting to kind of see that, and I think thanks to my apprenticeship it almost broke that cycle for me. And it allowed me in that room, it allowed me to work alongside those professionals and just soak up all that knowledge and get a qualification at the end and get paid. So that was all really good. I moved on to a college group after that. I finished my apprenticeship. I decided I wanted to kind of go into more of a technical role. So I went and worked for a college group called R&N Group, and they were great. I had an amazing manager there. And she supported me. She helped me grow, as managers should do. You know, they coach you and they help you. And during my 3 years there, I think I got promoted like twice, to a point where I was 22. I was a manager for the first time ever. And, you know, 3 of my team members, some of which were actually older than me. I was managing a small team of 3. And that was a big thing for me, because I was like, wow, like I'm 22, I'm a manager. At this moment in time, my mates were just coming out of uni like a year before, starting in entry-level junior roles, you know, and just getting paid, just starting to get paid with like however many grands of debt, like 30, 40 grand of debt. And so it really gave my career a big boost at that time. And so from then on, it was just building on top of that. So I moved from the college group to join the company I'm at now, a training provider. And they, funnily enough, deliver apprenticeships. So it's almost gone full circle. Like, you know, I've gone from doing an apprenticeship to myself to now delivering, like promoting, you know, marketing apprenticeships and helping the youth. So that's why I think the work that I do at Workpace, the company I work for now, is really meaningful, because you're not just selling a product and making a profit. You're actually like inspiring people, helping people get from A to B, from like, you know, being unemployed or maybe even in some cases homeless, to getting them on the job ladder, getting them in a professional role, and not just getting them into any job, but getting them into a career that they absolutely love.
Yeah.
So it's really meaningful, and, you know, I enjoy it so much.
Yeah. Just to go back a little bit, am I correct in saying this was in 2018 that you started your apprenticeship?
That's
right.
Yeah.
And this was a level 3 apprenticeship, right?
Yeah.
When was it that you left?
2017.
2017. Yeah. So from that year, the year that you left, to then when you landed your first apprenticeship role, what had happened during that? Were you doing applications, sending applications, and how did that work? Were you kind of like left to your own devices? Because you had left school at that point, so you didn't have the help of having the career service there.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess maybe just tell me a bit more about that year. How did you find that?
Yeah, so that was a very interesting point in my life, to be honest. Without going into too much of a tangent, I was looking to get married to a girl that I'd met at school, who you obviously know.
Yeah.
And there was like a bit of back and forth trying to arrange everything. Obviously, I was quite young as well, but due to like religious reasons, we wanted to get married, and so there was like a bit of back and forth there. But I also wanted to make sure I'm getting my career together. So I actually did do an apprenticeship a few months after leaving sixth form. But this is a great thing about, you know, being young and not having that many responsibilities. Yeah. I decided three months into the role, like it wasn't. In fact, I did 2 apprenticeships before I landed the one that I knew was for me. The first one was like at a telesales company. I just picked it because it was like the closest one to me. And then I almost realized that actually, no, I need to put more thought into this because this is my future, right? So, but I gave it my all. I was young, I was dedicated, and it was essentially cold calling people, selling big multifunctional printers. And I just was like, wow, like why did I sign up for this? My boss had actually paid me for the full month, even though I was only there for 2 weeks, because he saw the amount of hard work and dedication that I put into the role. And you know, I moved on there to work for like a more technical role after that, and it was at a broadband company in Sheffield, kind of helping people with like technical issues like Wi-Fi problems and whatnot. I stayed there for about 2-3 months, but then I realized I was missing the more kind of businessy side. So I had like the tech, which is great, the digital part, but I was missing the businessy side, the entrepreneurial side and whatnot. So that's where I came across another career called digital marketing. Yeah. And so I decided at the time, because I was young, I didn't have like many responsibilities, and I was like, do I lock myself into this now? I've done 3 months already. It's going to go to waste, blah, blah, blah. But then I thought to myself, actually, no, I've built transferable skills. And if I'm not happy in this role, in this company, in this career, then actually now is the time to move. When you're young and you don't have as many responsibilities, it might feel daunting at first, But actually, you need to think to yourself, you're going to be doing this as a career, right? And you want to build yourself up. Like, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years time, and essentially work backwards. And I couldn't see my future in that role at that company, or in that career. So I came across digital marketing. Now I was reading through, I went on a website called Prospects, and that was amazing because it listed, I put in the kind of what I liked, and it did all the career quizzes that you can do, and it says, oh, you might enjoy this job, this job, this job. And I came across digital marketing, and I kind of just worked backwards, and luckily I found, oh, there's an apprenticeship for this sector as well. So I thought, I love apprenticeships, I love being hands-on and earning whilst I'm getting paid. Let me go down that route and see if there's apprenticeships in the area. Now, because I had left sixth form, I did want to do a level 4 apprenticeship, which is equivalent to like A levels.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find one at the time. Apprenticeships weren't as big as they are now, so I decided to do a level 3 digital marketing apprenticeship in 2018 with that company. So there was almost a period in that year. I applied for 2 apprenticeships, stayed on one for like 2 weeks, stayed on the second for like 3 months, and then left that. And then my third time's a charm, right? So you know, I kind of stayed on that one, realized, yes, this is the one for me, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And yeah, I'm taking it all in.
Yeah,
I am taking it all in. It's really interesting to hear that as well. You know, considering we went to the same school, and my experience was a little bit different because I took a completely different route, which we'll talk about, because I really want to understand, you know, what it takes. And again, for whoever's listening, as you said, at the time that you were looking for these apprenticeship roles, there wasn't anyone there. There wasn't people who had gone through that, and there weren't many at the time as compared to what there is now. And all of that, we'll touch that. So you've then, in 2018, you've landed this role as an apprentice, and you said this was at WorkPay.
2018, the company Diva Creative.
Okay. And then you did that for, how long did you work there for?
So that was about 2 years, just under 2 years.
2 years. Yeah. Okay. And then I can see here, I know in 2023, you then went on to, I think you went to study for a level 6. You did a level 6 marketing apprenticeship?
Yeah, so 2018, 2 years at Diva, roughly. Then I moved on to the college group in my first proper job after my apprenticeship. Bearing in mind, I was so like nervous because I was thinking, is this going to work? Like, I've done an apprenticeship now. None of my friends have done it. No one's ever even heard of it. Like, that was the biggest kind of leap of faith that I took doing one, right? Yeah. It was a path that not many people walk down. Most people, almost all people, and you went down the university route. So 2020 was a big moment for me, because these past 2 years that I've done, and I've seen all my mates go to university, and I felt like I've missed out. Is it going to pay off? Thankfully it did. Another company, a college group called R&N Group, they were looking for a digital marketing assistant, and it was amazing because they didn't expect any like experience in that role. It was an entry level role, but I had already come with a qualification, with experience, and so compared to all the other candidates, they just couldn't like compare to the experience and the calls I had already received for that role. So thankfully it was like a no-brainer for them. I was selected, and then I stayed there for 3 years. So 2020 to 2023, I got promoted twice through my work there, but equally I was very dedicated. My manager helped me grow, and they actually funded me to do another qualification. So like lawyers have, like solicitors and lawyers, they have like a professional body, right? Yeah. We have the CIM, Chartered Institute of Marketing. And so my employers essentially like funded my level 4 qualification in CIM, which allowed me to basically have a formal qualification with the professional body for marketing across the country. So that was self-funded. I was doing it in the evenings. It was, you know, not for the light-hearted, very difficult.
Self-funded as in you had to fund it yourself?
So it was pretty much, so I basically paid for it. But then after I finished the qualification, every 5% they would like cover. Oh, okay. So unless I left. So that was kind of their assurance to say that, you know, once we've paid for this initially, we'll pay the 5% upfront, like 5% every month. It was like £2,000-3,000, right? But if you decide to leave, then whatever percentage is left, you're going to pay for. So it's essentially, we'll pay for it, but if you leave, you're paying for it. Right. And I kind of did leave, so I did have to pay like a decent chunk. but you know, it was worth, it was right for me at the time. So yeah, 2022 to 2023 received 2 promotions, but equally before that, those promotions, I had finished a level 4 qual, which was a nightmare to do because, you know, it was like even more of my time had gone. But I just thought to myself, like, I'm young. This is the time I want to invest in myself and my skills. You know, the best investment you can make is in yourself. And so bearing that in mind, I just thought, let me just do it. It's going to be hard now, but nothing easy, nothing worth getting in life comes, you know, easy. So yeah, I did that. And then 2023, which is what you mentioned there, that's when I started as a marketing manager at Workpace. And recently, so 2024, I want to say, although I might be wrong, 2024, I started my level 6 marketing manager apprenticeship. But that was very different to my level 3. Because I was already employed by the company, and I basically mentioned to the company, like, I could have done like a level 4 qual style stuff where I go to the company and I say, I want to do this qualification. I'll do it my own time. You just pay for it up front, and then, you know, you can pay 5% of it off or whatever. Or I do an apprenticeship, which wouldn't cost me anything. It would mean my employers would have to give me 20% off the job training. So I'd basically be doing my assignments, my modules, a day a week. So I would get a day, and I would still get paid for that day, which is amazing, without any reduction in pay. So that was a no-brainer for me. So that's why I basically chose to upskill myself through that apprenticeship route.
Okay. Quick question. How old were you at this point? 2023.
Yeah, I was 2023. I was about 20. Yeah, like 99, right? So 24 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And up until this point, if you can remember, how much was it that you? Because over here I do like to touch on finance, because I do think it's important that I can be as clear as possible with people. I'm only very much aware of the finance side when you go to university, because as you're aware as well, you know, you're in debt essentially by the time you finish. You've not even got a job. I'm in that situation right now. So it's so interesting to hear this from somebody else who's taken the alternative route. I think sometimes I do sit and think to myself, not so much regret, but what would it have been like if I didn't go to university and went the other way? So up until this point, up until about 2023, how much would you say you had spent? Or, because from what I've gathered here, you're not in debt, as opposed to somebody who has gone to university. They've, you know, taken out student loan, all of that. At this point, compared to someone who would go to university, how much would you say you've spent, or how much did it cost to have taken that route?
Absolutely nothing. Like the only thing you're paying for, which you would pay for any role or anything, is of course transport. But transport wasn't a big deal for me either, because, you know, I was very grateful and lucky to say that my first apprenticeship in 2018 was in Sheffield, so it was like literally a bus to city centre. The second one, I had a car, so I would have just driven, and it was like in kind of the Dinnington area, Rotherham sort of area, that side. And then the third one, Workpace, I work on like a hybrid model, so I'm only in the office like once a week, and they cover that. So in terms of student fees, nothing. Like, I literally did not pay anything whatsoever going down the apprenticeship route. And don't forget, like, I got paid. And I think, just to kind of touch on what you said, because I always like to kind of like help people understand, it's a frame of mind. So I wouldn't ever look back at your life thinking you've, like, you know, that's been wasted, or that was like not good that you did that. Like, you learn stuff even though you might not realize it. It's just a frame of mind. Like, you need to kind of see the silver lining. You know, if you didn't do, you know, if you didn't take the steps that you had took, would we be here right now? Would you have started, you know, being B and all this sort of stuff? So some things in life are just, you know, they were meant to be and they were meant to happen. I think the key is to look back and think, okay, if that situation comes again, what can I learn from that, and what can I take to you know, improve myself? University as well. Like, I know I talk about apprenticeships being the best because I'm obviously biased now, but genuinely, like, university is actually, for some people, university is the right way. I mean, look at my brother-in-law, for example. He's doing dentistry, and although there's like a dental nurse apprenticeship, you know, it's not the same as like doing a dentistry degree right now. There will probably be in the future a dentistry kind of apprenticeship standard, but at the moment, if I recall correctly, there's 700 apprenticeship standards in the UK. And going back so many years, it only used to be for tradesmen, electricians, plumbers, but now it's so different. Like, you can do marketing, you can do law. Like, I have a friend who does a level 7 solicitor degree apprenticeship, and she works for Broxton Borough Council, and so she's quite similar to, I guess, the kind of career that you guys are both on together, very similar, right? But she's going to come out, it's a 6-year apprenticeship, I think, so it's still a long commitment, right? But she's not going to have any student debt. She already works for Broxton Borough Council as a solicitor apprentice. She's got tons of experience, you know, already under her belt, and she's got no student debt, and she's being paid, and she's, you know, hopefully will have a qualification in the end. Don't get me wrong though, like, apprenticeships are no like walk in the park. I think the thing is, it's fast tracking your career, but it does come at a cost, and the cost is you're working full time on top of being expected to study and like to do assignments and to do all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you know, I don't want to kind of sugarcoat things. It's not easy, but it's worth it. It's fast tracking your career essentially. Whereas compared to uni, like, you might attend some lectures, do some studying and stuff, but you might have a part-time job on the side, but it might only be on the weekends. So this is literally like 5 days a week you're studying. And especially with like degree level apprenticeships, because the highest one you can do a level 7 apprenticeship now, which is like a master's degree equivalent to that. But with those higher level apprenticeships, that 20% off the job training, it isn't always enough. So it's great that you get 1 day of paid time to focus towards your studies, but you know, you might still be working on studying on the evenings and sometimes on the weekends. So, you know, I don't want to sugarcoat it too much. It does come with its own difficulties and hardships, but ultimately, out of the two, I would still pick apprenticeships where there is, you know, a standard available in the sector you want to go down. So, you know, if you want to become a doctor, maybe not apprenticeships yet, but there will be a time where you can become a doctor via an apprenticeship route, just like you can now with teaching. You had to go, like my wife is going down the teaching route, right? And she can do that now through a degree apprenticeship in teaching. So yeah.
Yeah, because I was just about to say, I guess it just depends on the area that you want to go in, you know, I don't know, law, dentistry, or medicine, for instance. Some of them you probably need to take the university route, and for others you don't. That's very interesting.
We shouldn't think of it like, oh, university is my only issue with the whole thing was that for many of us, university was the only route. That's what we were told, right? But actually, there's loads of different routes, and actually it depends on the person. You look at the person, you don't look at, oh, okay, well, this person's finished sixth form and they've got to go and do this route, and this is like because everyone's done it, right? And it's like, what's right for the person? Is the person more practical? Are they willing to commit and be dedicated towards an apprenticeship where it's going to be tough, but they're going to fast track their career and they're going to get so many benefits out of it? Is there an apprenticeship even available in what they want to do? You know, so there's so many factors you've got to take into account.
Absolutely. Right, guys, I feel like we are going to end this episode here. There's so much more that I really, really want to talk about that I don't feel like we have enough time to talk about it in this one episode. So what we're going to do is we're going to be bringing out a part 2, whereby we're going to go in more depth about Kasim's current role, what he's doing now. And I feel like that is where you'll get to learn, you know, a little bit more. I'm sure so far you've heard a lot, but that is where we're going to go a little bit deeper, just dive into the role. He's going to give you, myself, all of us, some advice as to, you know, what it takes to work in the industry that he's in now, and perhaps some of his experiences as well. But yeah, make sure you tune back in for part 2. We'll be back again, you know, next week for the second part of this episode, which we haven't done before, and there's always a first time for everything. So I will see you here for part 2. As always, make sure you're following B&B on Instagram and TikTok. We're also on YouTube and Spotify. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all of that jazz. You know what to do. We'll be back again next week. So peace out.